Laura, LGO, welcome to the podcast, love.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my goodness. I mean, you are one that has literally been on my radar for a really long time. And I am just so honored that we can sit here because I feel like you have really cracked the code on the kind of really speaking truth to ambition and balance and kind of what tends to happen, like the underbelly of that success. And I kind of just want to break it down that way and start there. Did you ever have that sort of wonder hell for yourself as you talk about in your newest book?
Yeah, so I was actually on an airplane on the way home from a speaking gig. I was on a red eye, and I like to joke that I'm like too old for that at this point. But the night before, I was speaking at an event for 2,500 people, and I was the opener for Malala, like Malala, Malala. The next morning back in Boston, this talk was in Vancouver. The next morning back in Boston was my goddaughter's bat mitzvah. So like, can't miss Malala, can't miss the bat mitzvah on this red eye, and I am exhausted. Nita, I am exhausted. Like I hadn't slept in 3 weeks. I'd been busy, with the book launch and all of that. And day before, I had gotten word that my book launched as a Washington Post bestseller, The Limitless, my last book. And I was looking at my phone, I was scrolling through, and I saw like the screenshot from the Washington Post, and then I saw the selfie that I took with Malala, which by the way, I look like hot garbage in. She looks amazing because she's Malala, but I look like hot garbage. And I was like, I've had the weirdest week of my life. And then I had this moment where, because I was so tired, the part of my mind that normally dictates my humility was just gone. And I heard a little voice inside my head go, this thing has legs. It can be bigger. You can be bigger. And suddenly I saw this image of myself. Like I did Washington Post. Like, what about the Wall Street Journal? I've been on Today's Show. What about Good Morning America? Someone's got to sit under the oak tree with Oprah. Why not me? It's got to be someone. And I was just like, fantasizing. But once I saw that image, I couldn't unsee it. And suddenly it was amazing. It was exciting. It was humbling. It was wonderful to have this success that I never thought I could have. And also, I was then filled with anxiety and dread and uncertainty and doubt and imposter syndrome and exhaustion and burnout. It was hell. It was wonderful and it was hell. And I was sitting on this airplane and I was like, I'm not just stuck in the center seat, which like two linebackers snoring on me. I'm in wonder hell. And I actually posted a long thing on Facebook describing this moment. And our mutual friend, Clay A. Bear, was like, that's a pretty good word. That should be your next book. And so that sort of dropped this little seed in my brain that germinated all the way through, eventually it now becoming my new book, Wonder Hell.
Wow, amazing. And I mean, I think, even just to unpack what you just shared, because this is kind of the thing that we all strive for, we all hope for. And I feel like so many of our listeners have gone through either, different kinds of burnouts. And what you're describing is kind of like the peaks and the valleys, but not really, not very many people are kind of open to share what that wonder hell could really look like. And I know that in your newest book, Wonder Hell, you kind of describe what actually, can really go down and the solutions to kind of help us through it. So can you take us through your process?
Yeah, I can. And so what I'll say before I do that is that for me, this sort of alchemization of this moment was because I had a best-selling. But I then, as I started to learn more about it, realized, oh, I also had this moment when I dropped out of law school and I joined that crazy guy's campaign who was running for president, and I got tapped to like do some volunteer work. I also had this moment when I stepped in for my boss and I did a presentation for the first time, and I was like, that's kind of cool. Maybe I like the spotlight. I had this realization the first time I sold a consulting contract, and I was like, oh my God, somebody wants to pay me for my advice. Like, it doesn't have to be this big, huge success. It can be the very first time you've run a mile and you're like, maybe I could do a 5K, right? It's any moment where you stepped outside of what you thought you could be and what was expected of you. So the book is sort of set up like an amusement park. There's Imposter Town, there's Doubtsville, there's Burnout City. And I set it up that way because we've all been told that success is going to be amazing. It's going to be so fun. Just like an amusement park. You're going to go, you're going to ride all the rides, you're going to go to all the towns, you're going to eat all the food. And then it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you're like, I'm kind of hot. I'm kind of sunburned. This dehydration, this like corn dog isn't getting along so well with the cotton candy that I'm stress eating as I'm waiting for the roller coaster that I don't even want to go on, right? You think it's going to be fun, but it's not. And we've been sold by the like success industrial complex, this idea that like all you have to do is get to success and everything's going to be easier, right? And then like that sucked. Now what, right? So you're like in this place where you're like, I thought it was going to be great. And so what I did was when I found myself in Wonder Hell, I started calling every like amazing bold-faced person I'd ever met over the course of 20 years of executive search, where my job was to call amazing bold-faced people and recruit them away. And also the people I'd met in these green rooms and these incredible events. And I was like, how do I get through this moment of Wonder Hell? And what I learned was that we actually don't get through it. We don't survive it. And on the other side, we're like, awesome, it's great. We learn on the other side of each success, we learn what we're capable of. And then we see another layer, like we see something else we can do and we want to explore that. So on the other side of this success, it's just the next one and the next and the next one, which means that on the other side of this Wonder Hell is just the next one and the next one and the next one. And so it's not about getting through it. It's about learning how to be uncomfortable in it, learning to get comfortable with that discomfort, because that's the only path to growth. And not saying, okay, I just need to like, I'm going to either be successful and get through it. Awesome. Or I'm going to curl up in fetal position till it passes. Awesome. There's got to be a happy medium where we're like, okay, this imposter syndrome I'm feeling, the doubt I'm feeling, the uncertainty I'm feeling, all of these things are not these like slings and arrows that we have to push down and ignore and push away. They're actually these incredible, helpful allies that tell us that we're on the right track. And so what I learned is that we have to renegotiate our ambition with all of these emotions.
Oh, I so love that. I can obviously resonate with that. I feel like that's why our books are best friends.
So simpatico. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
It's so amazing. And I love that you've now, from Limitless, your other book, which did widely well, talking about, the potentials and kind of the limitless opportunities, but also now when you're there and you're there in several different arenas of life. And I feel like even, for myself, reaching whatever that pinnacle version of success was, whether it was motherhood, whether it was selling my dental practice, whether it was, starting over from scratch in this new, coaching consulting business and first hitting my 5-figure, month and, all of those things. Yeah. It comes with the, oh my gosh, am I supposed to be doing this? And I love the whole metaphor of Wonder Hell being, an amusement park, because when I got, your book, I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a pun on words, because it does, your cover is this incredible, I thought you were making fun of like the whole, carnival style cover, by the way. It's done so well. And I'm like, oh, okay, I love her. She's already funny and she's spoken fun. But then inside you go to, the imposter syndrome, but then also the, burnout city, as you call it. So can you take us through when people get to the certain destinations within the book, because I love your writing style and I love how you've made it so tangible. Anyone, and what does that reconciliation process looks like of feeling the feels?
Yeah. So the as I mentioned, the book is like an amusement park, as you've seen, and in each town, Imposter Town, Doubtsville, and Burnout City, there are rides. And the rides are supposed to evoke the emotions that we have in these moments. So it starts off with the Imaginarium. You walk into the Imaginarium and you see a pageant of possibilities. The world is your oyster. Like, could you do? Like, what could you have if only you could dream more? And so you walk into the Imaginarium, one person, and you walk out entirely different. And throughout the book, I tell the stories of people who found themselves in these moments. So, there's the Imaginarium, there's the Hall of Mirrors, where you see this reflection of what you could be, bigger or smaller. There's, the bumper cars when we're dealing with, somebody knocking us off course and perfectionism, the roller coaster, dealing with uncertainty, the gravitron when the floor drops out from under you, the carousel when maybe you want to take it slower, the Ferris wheel when you go all the way up to the top and then you get this great perspective on all the people who you're coming back to on the bottom and not so sure you want to be there with them anymore. Maybe they shouldn't be there with you anymore. So throughout the book, there's all these different emotions. And so it was really difficult in writing the book because Limitless was very clear. We all want success to feel better, but it doesn't. Why doesn't it feel better? Well, based on 20 years of executive search, it's because we're chasing success as defined by someone else. okay, how do we define success for ourselves? We need a combination of calling, connection, contribution, and control. And here's how to change yourself, your workplace, or your career in order to get there. It was like a very linear path. But in Wonder Hell, each of us feel these feelings very differently. So when you were selling your dental practice, when you were launching your first course, maybe even when you decided, you took your first exam in dental school, when you had your first child, like whatever the feelings are, you probably felt very different, but it still felt like this is exciting. And also friggin' terrified. But that terrifying feeling manifested very differently. And so what I like to say is that this book is sort of a like choose your own adventure. So, if you're opening it up and you feel like you're in this place where you're surrounded by people who might have been right for you before, but who don't really share your hopes and your values and your goals now, well, maybe the Ferris wheel is where you should start, even though it's like 12 or something, like maybe that's where you should start. So, in order to sort of reconcile the experience going through it, I tell stories of people that found themselves in these places and give very specific, very tangible advice about what to do when you're in that moment. And honestly, I wrote this book because I needed this book. Like when I was on that airplane feeling those feelings, I started researching all the books that were out there, and they came in these sort of two forms. They were either like hustle harder, rise and grind, 10x, like suck it up, bro. Or they were the like, find your passion, like these like boho chic Instafluencers, and they're amazing. I love them, but like I'm really too old to take advice from girls in flower crowns anymore. Like, no offense to the flower crown wearers out there. I've worn a flower crown or two in my day. I'm sure you have too. I'm sure people listening to this have. But here's what I want to say. Like that's going to work sometimes. Like there were moments in this last book launch where I wanted to put on my flower crown and like sit in a music festival and just chill with my gummies. And then there were moments where I needed to crush it and I needed to rise and grind. So like we are different people in different moments. And I think that we should be able to have more than like this one size fits all tool. And so with Wonder Hell, I think that all of those emotions, they're going to be good, they're going to be bad, they're going to be ugly. We can't control which ones come at us when. All we can do is understand that they're not limitation, they're invitation.
Oh gosh, yes. I feel like you're preaching to the choir here where, there has to be room for both.
Yes.
Like the celebration, yet the duality of the emotions that many times I know growing up in, my world, that the only valid emotion that was acceptable was happy. And that was it. If I was crying in my room, if I had failed a test, it was, you're just being gaslit. And I know gaslit is a word that like is just very, I think it's like the word of, this past year.
Yeah.
But I think that because generationally, we just didn't have space for it. Growing up from an immigrant household, and I know many listeners are from immigrant households, it's kind of like, all right, you obey your parents, you listen to what they say, you do as told, and you get the straight A's, you get the accolades, and then you just kind of get on this achievement kind of roller coaster, as we're using that same metaphor, which, by the way, I absolutely love. I just think you're a genius at storytelling, and I just think that I feel like people right now, you guys have to just go on Amazon and get the book. This is literally one of those books. Do you have a copy of it? Because I have it at my home and not even my studio, because it's literally that good. Look at it. It looks like you are at the carnival. And when you just pick it up, I just started laughing because I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this Wonder Hell? And so not only does it pique curiosity, but it's also a reframe on some of the things that just knowing your backstory. I love graphic.
There's the town now. Well, so thank you. I really appreciate that. I always say I can't add a column on numbers to save my life, but I love to write. So when somebody compliments my writing, it's like, yay. But can we talk about the perfection roller coaster for a minute? I grew up in a home where if I brought home a 97 on the test, the response was, where are the other three? Right? Like it wasn't good job. It wasn't you worked so hard. It wasn't I know. It was where are the other 3 points? What's wrong? I don't think I ever saw my parents sneeze. Like I did not grow up in a home where like emotion were thing, right? Like you just sort of and you know, to my parents' credit, like my parents grew up in sort of like my parents were born just after World War II. They were children of immigrants. The specter of the Holocaust hung over them. Like they dealt with, you know, polio in the homes. Like it was like a heavy time, right? So I'm 52. I'm a bit older than you. But I had the same experience, that same like if you are good, meaning you get good grades, you do your chores, you clean the dishes, you're nice to the neighbors, right? You like clean up nicely, right? If you are good, I love you, right? It feels almost transactional.
Yes, and you're the good kid because you don't cry.
You're the good kid, right? You're the good kid because you don't cry, right? You like, oh, look at you, you sucked it up, like you know, you fell and you got back up and you kept going. You're so good, right? Like strength was the thing that was complimented. So like puppies, like when you get a bone for like pooping in the right place, like you get a treat. Like I got a treat. Like you get like I'm going to keep being strong, and we learn to push down all those emotions into this place where they can only fester, right? Like, and then they come out at the worst possible moments, and you're like, I don't know why I'm crying at this commercial, right? It's like it's this because you have these emotions, this thing that you've been told like they're a dirty word. Then I married a guy who came from a home where they talked about emotions all the time. And
Stop.
It's amazing. We've been married for 25 years. So we've been together for 27. And like maybe we were together for 6 months, and I got really emotional about something, and I started crying. And I'm like, oh my God, these emotions, they're so stupid. And he turned to me and he's like, they're emotions. So they can never be stupid. And I was like, who are you? Like, what is that? What? But so here's what I've come to. I think that there are a million billion miles between being loved and being seen. When the pandemic first happened, I started to go see a therapist because, like a lot of people, I just stopped seeing like all the stress. I'd never been to a therapist before. It's not that I'm against therapy, but I was raised in a house where like you didn't go to therapy. Like it wasn't a thing. Like
You go to therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
People have something wrong with. There's something wrong with you. You don't need therapy, right? Like you don't have to be Jeffrey Dahmer to need therapy. Like there's again a happy medium. So I went for the first time when I was 50, and in the first appointment, the doctor was asking me questions like, you know, tell me about your childhood. Did you have any siblings? Are your parents still together? Where'd you grow up? Did you feel loved as a child? And I was like, yes, maybe. Like, and I did. Like, I felt loved. I felt protected. I felt cared for. I felt like my parents did actually care, like if I came home at night. But it came back a couple weeks later, and I was like, I think you asked me the wrong. It wasn't whether I felt loved. It was whether I felt seen. Could I have decided, hey, mom and dad, I'm not going to college. I'm going to art school, right? Like, could I have said, I'm not dating this guy. I'm dating this woman. Like, could I have flown a different flag than theirs and still been loved? I don't know. Probably. I give my parents a lot of credit, right? But I think a lot of people are in a place where they don't know, and that not knowing if I'm truly seen, will I still be loved? I think one of the biggest gifts we can give each other is to truly see them. And this perfection roller coaster that we're on doesn't allow us ever to be seen, ever.
Ooh. Wow. You've just struck a big chord. And I think at the core of it, you know, as I'm putting on my psychology hat, at the core of it, as humans, we all just want to belong and be seen and be heard. And for so many of us, we were just not given the space for it. And of course, like not, you know, throwing shade on my parents, your parents, or that generation before us.
I mean, they did the best they could do from where they came from, for sure. Just as we're doing, like our kids are going to have plenty to complain.
Right, exactly.
No question about it.
Exactly. Like you've been making me feel my feelings since I was like 1. Because
no more feelings.
I literally have a chart, and you know, Brave Table fam, you guys probably have heard this already, but I have a chart in my room, or in the kids' room. That's the playroom, because now we have 2 kids. But ever since my son was 2, and we had just moved from LA to Texas, of course, during the pandemic, when emotions were running wild all over the place, I was pregnant again. And there was these charts that actually showcase the emotions like as cartoon characters. So, you know, she's happy, she's sad, she's frustrated, she's angry, you know, she's what's the other one? She's surprised. So like he started noticing how to actually say what he
Mm.
was feeling. I'm mad, mama. Okay, tell me why. So we started doing, and it's just like a few words because he was 2.5 at this point. But we started to have, and his tantrums, his meltdowns were like, all right, I'm gonna time it. Okay, let's see how
Yes.
long we go. And the most it would go is like 20 minutes for a crazy, meltdown, which I'm like, all right, I'm not going to judge it. But as soon as like I had a family member, one of my aunts or my in-laws would come from India and they're like, what are you doing? Why is he crying? Oh my gosh, let's stop. Let's stop. Let's stop. I'm like, no, let him have his experience. I'm like,
Yes.
and so, but it was also healing my little girl inner child who never even had the space for that. And just to kind of see him. And then guess what? Like, Laura, after the 20 minutes, he's like, okay, mama, let's play cars.
I'm good now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and and I honestly, I think that's sort of at the root of Wonder Hell is like we are always so busy trying to get to the I want to feel better part. I mean, even like in 2021, I got really sick, like not COVID, but like so sick I didn't know if I was going to see 2022. Like I had this unbelievably rare autoimmune disease that has been diagnosed with 800 people in the entirety of the United States. So like I spent a lot of months with doctors being like, you never want to be the inpatient. Take it
Oh
from
my God.
me. I was the very, very interesting patient. And there were so many people, even when we were still trying to get to a diagnosis, that were like, you're going to be great. And I'm like, am I though? Am I? And a year later, I was with my sister who was like raised the same way I was, right? Like, don't feel any feelings. It's all going to be good. And we went on vacation together. We were sitting on a beach and she turned to me and she was like, I'm so glad you're better now. It's all behind you. It's never going to happen again. You're fine. And meanwhile, I was like, well, I'm in remission, 10 months of chemotherapy for a drug that they don't really, or for that a drug that was off brand that I'm now allergic to. So if I ever get it again, I can't use it. And they also don't know what remission means for a disease that 800 people have. So am I? Am I past it? I don't know. And she was like, yeah, you're past it. And finally I turned to her and I was like, listen, I know that we were trained as children to like push it away and keep moving forward. But when you do that, what that does, which is what your 2-year-old would say, if your 2-year-old could say these things, but we don't know how to say it to, what your 2-year-old would say is you are discounting all of the emotions that and minimizing the experience that I'm having and the pain that is in my heart, the fear and the uncertainty and the unknown that's out there by just brushing it away and telling me, get past it and keep moving. Like, I actually need to spend a little time in the trauma of it to understand because I don't get it, right? I don't get it. And I can't move forward until I'm on steadier ground. But we're so busy trying to push people to like, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. Because we don't want to be uncomfortable. Right. And so we do people such a disservice. Like your aunts from India were uncomfortable with your son having the experience because they're not comfortable with it. So they wanted to stop it because they didn't like it. You're able to sit in the discomfort a little bit longer. And because of it, you're raising a much more emotionally agile.
Oh, yes. And which is why I love the work that you're doing. And I feel like you're coming at it from a perspective of, for those who maybe, isn't from the woo woo space or that sort of world where we can actually take a lot of the learnings and really integrate it fully and within ourselves, wherever stage season that we are at. Because, as I was funny story. Yesterday, I was actually coming back from the gym and I was with my elderly aunt and uncle. They were just visiting this past weekend and we were in the parking lot and there was another elderly woman who came out, probably the same age as them. Anyways, turns out she was 81. She looked amazing. And turns out she's also done a lot of work, spiritual and just like, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're like a soul sister of mine, but you're just 81. And it was interesting because she had said, for so many years of my life, I had spent just, meditating. And for the last 20 years, as I lost my husband, I had put on some weight and my dream has always been, I'm not even lying. She's like, I've been wanting to write a book. And I said, okay, what would you write it on? And she said, well, I think my generation had it all wrong. She said, I feel like in the last just 5 or 6 years, I finally understood what feeling my feelings has meant. And I want to write a book on that. And I was
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, this is so weird because I've just written a book on that. And why are we meeting in the parking lot of this gym? And it was just beyond. But that someone 81, and she pointed to my aunt and uncle. She's like, listen, what were the feelings that you guys grew up with? Like, it was not taught in our generation. And she was, I think 40s, right? 40s, 50s, 60s, even
Yeah.
70s, to even feel those emotions. And she's like, that's why I can't even leave the house without putting makeup on. And I'm 81 and I'm just going to the gym. But because you can't see like me without my face on or without all of the accoutrements and all of the things,
The
because
armor.
what will people think?
Right, what people think. Yeah, I had a pretty raging eating disorder in college, and I think some of it's because of that, right? It's the like what you look like is more important than what you feel like.
Mm.
It's not great, right? And I'm all for body positivity. I think it's good. I mean, there is this question of like, do we push it too far when we're like, you're 400 pounds overweight? Awesome. Like, I don't care what your size is if you're healthy. Cool. Like I'm an athlete now. I ran my first mile of my life when I turned 39. And one of the things I do is row. Women who row are strong. They are muscular. They are not tiny, petite little flowers. And I look at them and I'm like, oh, I wish my body looked like yours, right? Like I grew up in the age of like Christy Teigen and Linda Evangelista and Kate Moss. It was like the more bones you can show, the better. Now the more booty you can show, the better. Like I got a booty. I'm a nice Jewish girl with some haunches back here. And I grew up thinking that I was disgusting and fat and just a cow my whole life. And now I'm like, J-Lo is my age? Like, where was she when she was my age when I was like 13 and felt horrible? I mean, I know where she was. She was on the block because that's Jennifer
There
Garner.
she,
We all
yeah,
know where
there
she
she
was.
was.
She was in the Bronx. But like I look now and I think, God, like how liberating to grow up at a time and feel your feelings and you can be in the body that you were given by God. And isn't it great? And then also they're like on social media, so they're still in this sort of comparison hellhole. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's really hard. But the question that I always come back to is like, how do we stay true to who we are while we're also constantly changing, right? So like when you're 15, 16, 17 years old, somebody's like, pick a major, pick a trade, pick a college, pick a career, pick a job, pick a spouse, right? Like pick a type of person you want to be with. And we're like, okay. And we do it. And the thing that we don't have when we're 15, 16, 17-year-olds is what? Sense, perspective, life experience, frontal lobe, like the part of our brain that actually dictates good sound decision making. So we're asked to make a decision that's going to affect the very rest of our lives when we can't good one. But then because we feel like we have to be perfect,
Yeah.
we never give ourselves grace to change our minds. So we wake up at 25, at 35, at 45, at 55, and we're like, or at 81, and we're like, God, is this my life? Like, is this all there is? Is this who I am? And so I love your like, that sucked. Now what? It's just like, it sucked. Like, I'm going to be completely open and completely blunt and like bring people through whole of the experience, because all the stories we hear, like he dropped out of college and he founded Facebook in his dorm room, or he dropped out of college and created Microsoft in his garage, or like here's the startup with this person who dropped out of college and then the next thing is $1 billion, and it's always like, here's I've exploded my life and then here's the $1 billion, but nobody talks about the messy middle. And
Right.
the messy middle, it's like that's where we spend all of our time. And a lot of times we're exhausted. Our hormones are a mess. We've got like a 2-year-old terrorist staring us in the face who like doesn't want the chicken nuggets they just asked for, right? Like we're just like, what do I do? Like it's the messy middle is where we're always at. So like, how do we stay true to ourselves and continue to feel our feelings while those feelings are changing and growing all the time?
And you've just done a superb job in laying it all out in Wonder Hell, because we can be in the Wonder Hell, the wonder of it, and also the discomfort of what we are actually experiencing and feeling, and to have the grace around it, and to still, if we want to, go for those goals and feel the feelings along the way in that roller coaster ride. So Laura, before we get into our igniting round, I'd love to share, where can people get the book? I think that this is one of those that should live on your nightstand. Get it for a friend, get it for a few friends so that you can all, I'm all about the book clubs. I'm such a big proponent, and it's the best way to kind of then be able to have that vulnerability and share what's really going on. And now you have an excuse. You can get this book and circle around and have this
Well,
to
I
chat.
appreciate that. Thank you so much. So, all my good friends call me LGO. I'm at Hey LGO on all the socials. I've been a little ranty today. I feel like I woke up this morning on the ranty side of the bed. So if you want more rants, you can find those on me on social anytime you want it. Hey LGO. And if you want to learn more about the book, Wonder Hell, it's at wonderhell.com. Oh, and if you're thinking about where in Wonder Hell you are, what ride am I in, what town am I in, at wonderhell.com, there's actually a quiz, 15-question quiz, and you can take it and it'll tell you exactly what ride you're on and what ride you're going to go do next, and it'll give you some very specific tips to help you get through these.
Gosh, I love it. I mean, if you had a storytelling course as well, I'd be like, yep, all about that, LGO.
Well, thank you.
I feel like you're the master of that. It's amazing.
It's, I think that I started off on this journey because I needed to find my way through Wonder Hell. And what I learned was that there's actually no way through it. There's just a way to get comfortable in it. And of all the people that I talked to, I learned there were lessons from them, even though they're these superhuman people. They're lessons for all of us in their stories. And so I wrote this book because I needed it. And what I'm finding is that everybody I talk to about is like, oh my God, I think I'm in Wonder Hell too. So it's the joke, right? We're all in Wonder Hell, but Wonder Hell only presents itself to those who are worthy. So if you weren't capable of doing more, you wouldn't see that potential that's out there, that's sitting on your shoulders with that burden.
It's huge. It's huge. And as we get into our final igniting round,
Yeah.
few questions. What are you braving in this season of life?
Well, I just signed up to run the Berlin Marathon in November. So right now I'm braving running, which I hate. I mean, it might be the worst thing in the world. This will also be my 6th marathon and I still hate it.
And
But I
you
love
just
having done it.
you just started running like not very long ago.
I ran the first mile of my life when I turned 39 years old.
My
I
God.
found this, it took me 6 weeks to run the first mile. And after that, I was like, well, that was cool. I wonder if I could string 3 of those together. And then I ran a 5K. And then I was like, what if I string 2 of those together? And then I ran a 10K. I mean, these were like 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Like it took time. But then I was like, what if?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
I've only done it once, and I'm like, and Berlin's a beautiful city to do that at.
Well, it's flat. That's what I hear.
And Germany in October, not a bad place to be.
Not a bad place.
What does it mean to be brave?
I think, this is a cliche answer because I've seen it all over Instagram, but I think being brave means feeling the fear and doing it anyway. I just cliche because it's true.
Yeah. And what?
Or maybe I should say being brave is not worrying so much about being loved, but allowing might be a better answer given what we talked about. But they're probably both the same.
Ooh, I like that one a lot. And as I do with every single guest that comes on the show, okay, what message would you put on a billboard for thousands of people to see every day?
I would put on a billboard, forgiveness doesn't have to be therapy.
I love that. Okay, final question. What word describes the season of your life?
Intentionality. I have my youngest is about to go to college, and I, as I possibly can, about milking every single minute of this lesson.
Wow. I felt that. Thank you so much for being here, LGO. I mean, your wit, your way of being able to bring us all in. I can see that it's your craft. I can see it's no wonder why you've had 3 incredible books out. And for those, we'll put everything in the show notes. Go ahead, do yourself a favor, get that book, Wonder Hell. It has, hundreds of reviews now on Amazon. You can get it on Amazon, or you can go to wonderhell.com. And LGO, where can we find you? It's Hey LGO. Is that?
Hey LGO. Yep.
Okay. Amazing. Until next time on the Brave Table.